So if you were listening to this right now, I want you to imagine a wall of water.
Right, a massive wall.
Yeah, like 30 meters high. That is literally the height of a 10-story building.
It's hard to even picture that.
It really is. And this 10-story wall of water is crashing 6 kilometers inland.
Just completely wiping out everything in its path.
Exactly. We are talking about the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004, specifically in Aceh province, Indonesia.
The deadliest natural disaster in modern history.
170,000 people died. 5% of the entire population of Aceh just, vanished in 30 minutes.
Which is just a staggering, incomprehensible loss of life.
It is.
Yeah.
But here is the hook for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Common sense tells you that the people who survived those apocalyptic waves, right, you'd think they were broken.
Oh, absolutely. You assume they're doomed to live the rest of their lives in the shadow of trauma.
Right, like illness, early death, just completely shattered.
Because how could you not be?
Exactly. But the data tells a completely different, almost terrifying story.
The truth is actually the exact opposite of what you'd expect.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking an incredibly rare, just massively comprehensive working paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Led by an amazing team of researchers at Duke University.
Right. And their mission was to track the survivors of this disaster for 5 years to see what actually happens after the world stops watching.
And what they found, it reveals this brutal but awe-inspiring law of human life.
Yeah.
It shows how disasters ruthlessly eliminate the vulnerable. But in doing so, they leave behind the absolute most resilient, indestructible versions of humanity.
Indestructible. I mean, when I first read the premise of this paper, I was in sheer disbelief. It feels wrong to even say it out loud.
I know, it challenges everything we think we know about trauma and survival. We usually look at survivors as victims who need saving.
Right, people to pity.
Exactly. But this study, it treats them essentially as biological data points. It forces us to look at the cold, hard math of who actually survived.
Okay, so let's get into that math. Because when you are facing a 30-meter wave, why do you live while the person right next to you dies?
Is it because you know how to swim? Or is it something else?
Right, is there like a secret code of longevity already hidden in your body?
Well, let's look at the death rates. In the severely affected communities, the instant mortality rate was 16.7%.
Wow.
Yeah. But in the untouched communities, just a little bit further away, it was only 0.6%.
So the wave was the ultimate executioner.
It was. And survival in that strike zone came down to 3 raw, unforgiving forces.
Okay, what are they?
First is geography. Literally, how far were you from the sea when it hit?
Makes sense. Just pure physical distance.
Right. Second is physical capability. Did you have the brute strength and cardiovascular stamina to hold onto a tree while 1 million gallons of water tried to rip you away?
That's terrifying to think about.
It is. And the third is family structure. Who was standing next to you? Was there someone strong enough to physically pull you up out of the current?
So it wasn't just luck. It was a physical audit of human bodies.
A biological audit, exactly.
It's like an extreme involuntary decathlon. It wasn't about who was lucky. It was about who could hold their breath, who had the upper body strength to cling to a piece of debris.
And if you failed that physical audit, you died.
Which brings us to the core question. Did this horrific audit actually change the biological makeup of the surviving population?
To answer that, we have to look at how this study was even done. The STAR study. The study of the tsunami aftermath and recovery.
This wasn't just some basic survey handed out at a relief camp, right?
No, not at all. This is basically a scientific miracle. They successfully tracked 99% of the survivors for 5 full years.
Wait, 99%? In a disaster zone where entire towns were washed away? How is that even possible?
It's unbelievable, really. But the true magic of this data is that they had the baseline.
The before picture.
Exactly. They had this massive survey data called Tsunami from February 2004.
Which was 10 months before the tsunami even hit.
Right. So they tracked 5,640 adult survivors across 334 communities. And they knew exactly who these people were before the disaster.
So they knew how much money they made?
Yeah.
They knew how healthy they were?
Exactly. Which is so rare. Usually, we only study victims after the disaster happens.
Right, because nobody plans for a tsunami.
Exactly. Having this data is like having the exact blueprints of a house before a tornado hits.
So you know exactly what the wind took.
Exactly. You know what broke and what held strong. And we use this to look at 2 warring concepts.
Okay, let's break these down simply. No academic jargon.
Right. Concept 1 is the physical toll of trauma, the scarring effect.
Yeah.
Concept 2 is nature's brutal filter, the survival of the fittest, the selection effect.
So the toll versus the filter.
Yes, and
Yeah.
what the wave took, what the filter eliminated, was deeply, uncomfortably unfair.
Yeah, the waves didn't care about equality at all. The Grim Reaper basically took the women and the elderly first.
And this cruel unfairness set the absolute rules for the next 5 years.
Give me the data on that. How unfair was it?
In the worst hit areas, female mortality was far, far higher than male. If you look at the 35 to 49 age group, the gender gap was a massive 7 percentage points.
Wow, 7%.
Yeah. And older people obviously died at significantly higher rates than the youth.
So what are the actual mechanics of that? Why did it target them?
It's strictly physical. Women and older folks generally, on average, had less upper body strength. They had less cardiovascular stamina. They were statistically less likely to know how to swim.
Right.
So the physical force of the water executed a precise, targeted elimination based on raw physical power.
I mean, it's horrifying to say out loud, but the disaster essentially filtered the population.
It did.
It left behind a group of super survivors, specifically these incredibly strong men.
Exactly. And what happened to these super survivors in the years that followed is where the data just completely breaks your brain.
Okay, this is the paradox. This is the part that I just couldn't believe.
Prepare yourself.
Because common sense screams you lose your home.
Right. Yeah.
You swallow toxic seawater. You literally watch your neighbors die. The stress of that should kill you early.
It should age you 10 years overnight.
Exactly. But 5 years later, the men who went through this hell had a lower risk of dying than the people who safely watched it on TV.
I want to make sure the listener really hears that. For all age groups, men from the disaster zones had a persistently lower death rate over the next 5 years than men from the safe zones.
It's anti-common sense.
Yeah.
And the most extreme example is wild.
Oh, the older men.
Yes. For men over 75 years old, those from the disaster zone had a mortality rate almost 10 percentage points lower than those in unaffected areas.
10 percentage points.
Imagine the oldest, most battered men in the disaster zone. Men who got hit by a tsunami,
Yeah.
outliving the safe, comfortable men right next door.
It is a total slap in the face to everything we believe about trauma.
Where is this survival bonus even coming from? How does getting hit by a wave make you live longer?
Well, to understand it, we have to look at that ultimate duel we mentioned, the tug of war inside the human body.
Right, the toll versus the filter.
Exactly. So think about the toll, the scarring. Disaster leaves deep scars. You have psychological pressure, loss of property, profound grief.
Right, the stress of losing everything.
Yeah. And that toll pushes your death rate up. It grinds your body down.
Makes total sense.
But then you have the filter, the brutal selection. The weak are already gone. The people with latent heart conditions, the physically frail, they drowned.
The wave already took them.
Right. So the ones left standing are the absolute physical elite. And that elite baseline pushes the death rate of the group down.
Okay, so it's a math problem.
Yes. And here's the tipping point. If the filter is stronger than the toll, you witness an evolutionary miracle.
Traumatized people living longer.
Exactly.
It's like a brutal training camp. The camp itself injures you, right? That's the toll. It breaks your bones.
Yeah.
But only the absolute toughest athletes survive to graduate. That's the filter. And if you graduate, you're practically bulletproof compared to a normal person.
And for the older men in ACE, the statistics proved they were bulletproof. This isn't just a theory. The math proves it.
Let's get into the hard data on that.
Okay, so the researchers ran a massive regression model. Table 2, column 3 in the paper. If you were a man over 50 in the disaster zone, the tsunami literally slashed your chances of dying in the next 5 years by a full 5%.
5%.
The coefficient was a statistically significant negative 5.00.
That is wild. The tsunami acted as this extreme physical fitness test.
But we have to clarify a crucial philosophical point here.
Right.
The disaster didn't give them a reward. It didn't grant them magic health.
Right. Trauma isn't a vitamin.
Exactly. It simply exposed the cold logic of evolution. They lived longer in paper because the men in their group who would have died of natural causes like heart attacks or strokes, they had already drowned.
Oh, I see. So the weak were deleted from the denominator.
Yes.
So it's not that surviving made them stronger. It's that only the strong survived in the first place.
Exactly. Nature's brutal filter.
But wait a minute. If only the strong survived, why didn't the surviving women get this same 5% bonus to their lifespans?
This is where the filter gets really dark.
Mm-hmm.
Because for women, the filter was essentially broken.
Bringing broken.
Surviving women in the disaster zone died at the exact same rate as women in the safe zones.
Wait, really? The evolutionary miracle just ignored them?
Completely. If you look at the graphs in the paper, the non-parametric estimates, the mortality curves for women in affected areas versus unaffected areas, they are practically identical.
Why?
Because of the randomness of death for women in this specific scenario.
Explain that.
The 30-meter wave required extreme elite upper body strength to fight because women, on average, lacked that baseline brute strength to physically fight the currents. Their survival wasn't a fitness test.
It was a dice roll.
Exactly. It was pure luck. It was based on happening to be on higher ground or happening to be in a concrete building.
Oh, wow. So for the men, it was a brutal test of strength. But for the women, it was a horrific roll of the dice.
And you don't get healthier just by winning a dice roll.
Right, because you aren't biologically stronger than the woman who died next to you. You were just standing 2 feet higher up the hill.
Exactly. So the surviving pool of women wasn't filtered for extreme physical fitness the way the men were.
And without that massive physical advantage, what happened?
The immense psychological trauma, the toll, it just dragged down whatever tiny biological advantage they might have had.
Speaking of that trauma, we really need to talk about the price of being there. The visible trauma versus the invisible recovery.
The numbers on this are staggering.
Because, you watched your house wash away. You literally fought for air underwater. You lost your family. We assume this extreme trauma guarantees an early grave.
Right. We assume the stress will literally kill you.
But the data says nope. It barely moved the needle.
Look at the personal exposure stats. 20% of the affected survivors personally struggled in the water, like physically drowning.
Terrifying.
24% lost immediate family members.
Okay, so that is maximum psychological destruction.
Maximum. And yet, the shocker is this. For people under 50, these horrific personal experiences had absolutely zero statistical relationship with their risk of dying in the next 5 years.
Wait, zero?
Zero.
How is that physiologically possible? You watch your child get swept away, and your risk of dropping dead doesn't go up.
It drives home the absolute dominance of the filter. Think about it. In a high mortality environment, if your physical body is tough enough to survive the initial wave, your baseline vitality is just off the charts.
You're a genetic tank.
Exactly. Your foundation is so robust that even massive psychological scars cannot physically shape your biology enough to kill you.
It's like discovering that once you forge a sword in a volcano, leaving it out in the rain won't rust it.
That is a perfect analogy.
The forging process proved it was indestructible.
Exactly.
Okay, so if the tsunami survivors were bulletproof, who was actually dying over the next 5 years?
Prepare to be shocked again. It was the people who were perfectly safe.
The fake safe zones.
Yes. The most dangerous place to be wasn't where the waves hit. It was where nobody died at all.
Untouched communities.
Right. Communities where the water never reached. Maybe the earthquake shook them, maybe buildings cracked, but nobody drowned.
So because nobody drowned, there was no filter.
Exactly. There was no brutal physical test. The weak were not eliminated.
And what happened?
In these fake safe zones, the dark reveal is that older men who simply lost their homes saw their 5-year mortality rate skyrocket by a staggering 13 percentage points.
13%. Just from losing a house.
Yes. Because in a place where the weak weren't filtered out by the water, the toll showed its true terrifying face.
Right. Because you have physically frail people who are now subjected to intense chronic stress.
The stress of poverty, homelessness, economic ruin. Without the physical filter protecting the group's statistics, that stress directly shortened the lives of older, unfiltered men.
So if you didn't go through the brutal physical filter, the stress of simply losing your assets was enough to drop you. The safe zone was an illusion.
A total illusion. The wave of water missed them, but the wave of stress drowned them.
Which brings up a fascinating question about the scale of time. How trauma works over months versus years. Does acute grief kill you faster than the slow grind of going broke?
The researchers actually split the timeline to look at exactly this.
Okay, what did they find?
They looked at years 2005 to 2007 versus 2008 to 2009.
So the immediate aftermath versus a few years later.
Right. And they found something really strange. For older men, losing close family was strangely a marker of low mortality in the first 2 years.
Wait, losing family meant you lived longer. That sounds so wrong.
I know. But it's because losing family meant you were in the direct hit zone. it meant you passed the extreme physical filter. You were a super survivor.
Oh, so it's just a proxy for being tough enough to survive the water.
Exactly. But that physical survival bonus, it faded. By years 3 and 4, it wore off.
And what about the people who lost their homes? The chronic stress folks?
For older women, the stress of losing a home began to significantly increase their mortality risk in the later years, years 3 to 4.
So the psychology and the biology are operating on completely different timescales.
Exactly.
Grief is acute. It hits you immediately. But human biology adapts to acute grief. You keep breathing. But long-term displacement,
Yeah.
living in a makeshift camp, the creeping anxiety of having no roots, no money, that slowly grinds the body down over years.
It's the physical wear and tear of endless cortisol.
But wait, I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
Wasn't there a massive global aid response? I mean, I remember the telethons. The whole world sent money. Didn't people get new houses and resources in those later years? Why were they still dying?
That brings us to one of the most controversial findings of the entire study, the true face of resilience.
Because we like to think that millions of dollars in global aid are what saved these survivors. We want to be the heroes of the story.
We do. But the data literally slaps that idea out of our hands. Aid didn't change their biological fate. Their own unbreakable toughness did.
So the money didn't matter.
I mean, the money provided comfort, of course, but
Yeah.
the study found that the massive influx of resources, the new roads, the new houses in the latter half of the 5-year period, it did not significantly change the mortality trajectories of the survivors.
The survival curves didn't move.
No, they remained dictated by what happened on day 1. The survivors exhibited a profound, built-in physiological and psychological hardiness.
That is incredible. Human resilience is not something you can parachute in on a pallet. It is completely innate.
Exactly. They were born tough, not saved.
We want to be the saviors. But this data says the survivors saved themselves just by the sheer willpower of their own biology.
But of course, skeptics might say, wait, maybe the surviving villages just got better hospitals because of the aid money.
Right. Like maybe the mortality is lower just because there are 10 foreign doctors in the town now.
Right, and the researchers are smart. They thought of that, and their proof to debunk that is absolutely ironclad.
Let's talk about the village echo, the fixed effects model. This is where scientists get beautifully paranoid about their own data.
Oh, they used a brutal statistical tool to lock away every single outside factor.
Explain the fixed effects model simply.
Yeah.
How did they prove it wasn't just better hospitals?
They compared people living in the exact same village,
Okay.
walking the exact same streets, using the exact same clinic, the exact same doctors. They eliminated the environment completely.
So you have two neighbors.
Yes, neighbor A and neighbor B.
And even when comparing neighbors, the older men who personally faced the tsunami's wrath, the ones who got wet, still survived longer than their neighbors who got lucky and avoided the water.
Exactly, even within the same village.
So if you have two 60-year-old men, one gets swept away but swims back, the other was safe on a high hill.
Yeah.
The guy who fought the water is mathematically slated to outlive the guy on the hill.
Yes, because the guy who fought the water and lived proved he has a biologically superior engine.
That eliminates any argument about better aid or wealthier towns. The physical self-filtering of the human body is an absolute objective reality.
Which forces us to look at victims of catastrophe in a completely new light.
It really does. When we look at photos of disaster victims, we feel pity. We see them shivering in blankets, and we think they're broken.
But the numbers tell us we should feel awe.
Yeah. We are looking at the 5% of humanity chosen by the most brutal evolutionary test on Earth.
It's the macro summary of this whole deep dive. Extreme events don't just destroy, they completely rewrite the demographic structure of a population.
Nature's filter is strongest on men and the elderly.
Right, and the toll of trauma is most deadly only when you haven't been forced through that physical filter.
It elevates this to a philosophical level. Natural disasters are horrifyingly destructive, yes, but they reveal the absolute upper limit of human vitality.
They show us how incredibly hard it is to kill the strongest among us.
If you're listening to this right now, I want you to really absorb this. You aren't just a fragile bag of bones.
No.
Locked inside the human genome is a survival protocol that can withstand 30-meter waves and total societal collapse. You are built to survive.
But the tsunamis of the future might not be made of water.
That's the ultimate reflection here, is our world repeating history. Because the 2004 tsunami was a freak of physical nature.
Right.
But look around you today. The waves hitting us now are invisible. but they are just as tall.
Think about it. Global climate change driving freak weather. The AI revolution obliterating entire job sectors overnight.
Sudden economic crashes wiping out life savings in hours.
True vulnerability isn't just physical anymore, it's social, it's economic.
Remember the fake safe zones from the data.
Exactly. Losing your assets when you aren't physically tested is a deadly shock to the system.
If you don't pass a physical filter, the stress of losing your livelihood will grind you down and kill you.
It is the ultimate modern threat.
So we want to leave you with a chilling but empowering question. When the next unseen wave crashes over society, whether it's an economic collapse or a massive technological paradigm shift, where will you be?
Will you be the vulnerable ones swept away by the toll? Because you thought you were in a safe zone?
Or are you actively building the resilience right now, the mental, financial, and physical toughness to be part of the 5% that passes the filter?
It's something we all need to evaluate.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The data is clear. Human beings are indestructible, but only if you survive the test. Take some time to mull over how to weaponize your own resilience today, because the next wave is already forming.